Hey, Gabfocus! Welcome. Episode number 74. I've got the one and only Nigel. I'm going to introduce here in just a minute, but I want to pause to say hello to my friend Melissa. How are you?
Doing great in Seattle this morning. So, change of scenery for sure. We've seen some mountains that make our mountains look like little hills. So, yeah,
And
it's
so I've heard. I've not get a chance to ever see the Rockies with my own eyes, but I hear we have the rolling hills is a very good description of the Smokies.
yes, yes, yeah. We've now seen the tallest mountain in Washington and in Oregon. So, yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, welcome, Melissa. I'm glad you can join us today, even while
Yeah.
you're traveling and doing your work. Y'all, welcome to this episode number 74. We're going to talk about how you can future-proof, but also like what you can do to upgrade and expand your facility. If you missed us during the lobby talk, it was fantastic conversation. We learned from the audience what y'all are doing over the last 12 months to upgrade your facility. So today, the one and only Nigel Kreft has been in this industry since 1974. No, I kid. 1994, my guy Nigel. Welcome to welcome back to the Gap
Thank you,
Focus
mate.
stage. Last time you were here, we could not stop talking about doors. So I'm going to
Right.
ask you this. Today, what are you most excited to talk about?
I'm just excited to see where the conversation goes. I think, storage is an interesting time. Obviously, a majority of our work is around new construction. It's a real inflection point. I think the new world we're living in, people are adjusting to. And, rental rates are what they are, and people are coming to accept that. And interest rates are what they are, and people have to accept that. And we've got to go back to business. So, whether it's an upgrade, an improvement, a renovation, in addition to an existing facility or a new facility, it's time to get back to work. And I think people are heading in that direction. So it's a pretty cool time.
I love that tone. I mean, I think that sets the tone for this conversation, right? I think we just got to get back to it.
Yeah.
It's harder. The sandpaper is a little scratchier than it was, but I think we just got to roll it up and get going. So that's a great way to start this conversation. For those of you who are brand new to Gap Focus, welcome. Melissa and I are your co-hosts, and of course brought to you by our teams here at StoragePug and Lighthouse Storage Solutions. Our sessions are set up very simple. Melissa and I get to take turn asking questions to our expert, who you've already met, Nigel. We'll go for about an hour, but we have a ton of great questions that were pre-submitted. But if you have live questions, use the little Q&A tool down below, and we'll make sure that we'll keep an eye on your questions and ask them when it fits the conversation. And that's how we're going to do it. So today's agenda, we're going to talk about how do you actually go about identifying what your needs are at each storage facility. Two, we're going to talk about what kind of upgrades and updates you can do. And of course, expansions, which is really one of Nigel's great expertise, is how you can, take a 100-unit facility and turn it into a 200-unit facility, especially if you have the land and the capital to do so. So without further ado, shall we jump in?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it. Melissa, what do we got?
All right. So first, let's figure out how to identify the need, Nigel. So what are the main reasons that we would be looking to upgrade or expand our facility?
Yeah, to me, I think there's a few indicators. Obviously, occupancy is one, right? You need to be able to monitor occupancy. Obviously, you can move the occupancy rate around a little bit based on your rental rates, right? So you're only you're charging into 90, 92%, and then you can adjust up and down. But, if you're struggling to get renters in, there may be an issue. Or, if you move rental rates and you're still getting lots of traction and lots of interest, maybe you need to look at, getting more square footage in on the building. I think there's competition is a driver, right? So I don't know how many new facilities have been built in storage in the last couple of years, but a lot. And so, your competition is always looking, and they may move in across the road, right? So if your facility is older or you have a need for an upgrade and they put a big shiny penny across the street, people are naturally going to gravitate to that. So competition, I think, is a bigger driver than perhaps it used to be. It's not the little sleepy storage market that it used to be 10 or 15 years ago. There are some big sharks in the swimming pool, and you need to be able to compete at all levels against those guys. And then, you know, perhaps you're in the resale business. Maybe you're looking to get out of your property and you're looking to cash out. And so the quality and the grade of your property, certainly, you know, there's more money in a better property and a well managed and well looked after property. And so you may want to look at upgrading that, or at least having the ability to expand, whether you've got additional permitting or zoning, as more bait the water to perhaps a REIT or an individual who's looking to get into the storage business.
Right. Yeah, no, I think your point about competition is huge, and I think it's one that we don't always consider. What we've already talked about, we're out here in Seattle doing work for Reliable Storage, and they converted one of their facilities to all Noki locks. I think it was back in 2019, and they did it because competition was coming to town. And they knew once that permit had been pulled for that new facility that was coming in, you could see the facility from their property. They knew what that location was going to look like, and it was like a 3-story, you know, gorgeous facility. And this property had been there for a couple, like probably 20 years at that point. And they knew they needed to go in immediately and up their game, because they didn't want to lose out to the shiny penny down the street. And because that does get a lot of attention really fast. And so they went through and did an entire retrofit and did some upgrades to their climate control hallways. And I did not realize how old the facility was until he was telling me the history of it. And it was very surprising. So there are definitely things like that to consider, but what played in his favor was he'd been running his property right for those 20 years. And so when it came time to have to make that big upgrade, it was okay. And it wasn't like, we're just stuck, we don't have the money to work with. You know, you could tell they'd been planning for a while.
Yeah, and clearly, you know, cost is an issue, right? So you need value and you need return. But, you know, the reality is, when you're competing against, you know, these bigger guys, these guys that are well-funded, these REITs, these guys, they're not just attacking you with the visual look, right? They're coming at you in a multitude of different ways, with market analysis, marketing, pricing. They're going to try and put the squeeze on you for price. And then they're going to come after you to buy your property because you can't get the renters in, right? Because they squeeze you on price. Like, there is a lot of external big pressures coming in. And for you to be able to maintain, and then obviously, you know, increase your rental rates or decrease your rental rates, but maintain the occupancy to get your base number in, it's critical. And the upgrades are really, really important. And, you know, we've built a lot of facilities as a industry in the last 4 or 5 years. You know, there's been a flush, but that doesn't mean that your facility that's older can't compete with the newer stuff. You just got to be creative and find your way into that, you know?
Right. On which question are we on? We talked about, I think we hit the first couple, right? So like, talk us through, Nigel, like, is there a right time? You know, like, if I'm playing the calculus game of like, when do I do this? You know, like, obviously there's timing the market and there's chaos of operations and all of these things. Give us a framework on, like, how do I know when is the right time to go and do these upgrades?
Yeah, I saw that question and it got me to thinking, hey, I was like, you know, what does that look like? And what I landed on was really location and seasonal dependency, right? Obviously, if you're in the spring in the north, you're in your rent up season, not a great time to start ripping up the car park and interfering with your customers' business operations, right? Yeah, the snow plows are put away, now the landscape stuff's coming out, so you gotta maintain that. But then, can you do the work in the winter? If you're doing an expansion and you're putting down a foundation, can you find a way to do the expansion work without interfering with the customers, get your concrete done so you can build over those winter months? In the south, if your humidity and climate control isn't working or needs upgraded or isn't working as well as it should, are you going to be able to survive the summer with your customers walking into a 100-degree shed, metal building, right? Or are they going to go down to the street to the shiny new penny where it's nice and cool, it's $1 a month? So I don't know what it looks like as a general statement, but you have to take in not only your commercial considerations, right? But you have to take in the environmental considerations, the timing of the year. What is your customer base willing to accept? What do you have for accessibility? What is really important at that time of year that you could do without interfering with your customers, right? Again, it all locates itself in my mind around this competition base. You know, in the old days, it was three square mile radius. You know, you would never see another storage, maybe 4. You'd never see another facility. Those numbers are out the door now because these bigger guys have money to deploy and they want to build. And if they find a site, they're going to build, and they will come as their philosophy typically. So you have to manage what are your upgrade needs, what does that look like, and then how can you do it with less interference.
I love that. And I imagine facility in Seattle looks a little different potentially than a facility in Knoxville, Tennessee, just from weather and climate and all the other factors that might go into it.
Sure. Yeah. So, you know, you also have to take into consideration what can of worms are you opening up, right? So if you have an older facility that's built at a different building code and you got to do some upgrades, does that bring you into a new code? Do you have to do code upgrades? Can you get an exception, right?
Yeah.
You know, the Pacific Northwest where Melissa is and in the Northeast are really keyed on energy efficiency. So maybe you've got a roof that needs to be replaced and it's been neglected or has not been maintained. And you've got to go in and do a replacement. What does that look like in order to meet the required codes? And what's the cost benefit against that as well? You know, there's a lot of moving parts to be able to do an upgrade. Now, if you're talking about Melissa's favorite, cleaning the sign or upgrading to LED lighting, clearly that's a different type of approach, you know. But when you're looking in the competitive, hyper-competitive market of, you know, replacing doors or Everbright doors, or you're doing an expansion, or, you know, whatever that looks like, there's other underlying requirements that may be there that you're not aware of when you embark on it.
Oh, that's really cool. So Lindsay, I mean, this is a great segue, Lindsay. It's like you had our agenda in front of you. Love this question. And by the way, a reminder, if y'all, especially the folks who just joined us, looks like we just had a whole fresh crew. We've got Nigel Kreft, VP of Sales over at Elevate, one of the industry leaders at what he does. Going to teach us about upgrades and expansions today. So if you just joined us, welcome. Gabfocus episode number 74. But Lindsay's question, I love. We're planning upgrades and expansions right now. How do you balance the short-term ROI with long-term future-proofing, especially in a market that demands, where the demands fluctuate with seasons? So Nigel, how do you balance short-term and long-term?
Yeah, to me, it primarily has to be a long-term consideration. You know, I think the short-term bang is just that. It's short term. You know, to me, a facility upgrade brings in features like safety and security, lighting, fencing, you know, your aesthetic appeal. I know our friend Jane is big on drive up, right? Landscaping, that sort of stuff. You're taking this approach from a larger picture, from the 30,000 foot view. Short term, there's putting a fresh flowers in the front yard, make it look pretty, of course. Do you have long-term maintenance? Are you graded? Do you have mulching? Do you have all those types of things? Cleaning the gutters short term helps, right, to stop water infiltration if you've got a standing seam roof. Does a long-term maintenance program with inspections give you much more longevity? Of course, much more longevity. So, you know, the short-term quick fixes, the proverbial lipstick on the goat in Tommy's you know saying, but you know the reality is you have to be looking long term. It is an investment. You need the return on that investment, and you know a lot of those projects you know required some capital investment.
I think this goes back to something that we've said in previous episodes. Even with Jane, like you mentioned, Nigel, always run your property like you're getting ready to sell it.
Right.
And
That's correct.
if you always have that mentality and realize the impact of the small investments and the long term, you know, short term and long term, and you're constantly looking at those things, then all of your short term pieces are going to flow into your long term and keep those pieces working the way they're supposed to as well. They all just kind of feed each other. If you
Yeah.
stay in that mindset of I'm constantly keeping this working to the best of its ability, and you're not waiting on something to break. Because if you just wait on something to break, you're not really ready for, you're not doing any preventative stuff to better your property.
No, that's right. And when you look at this, you know, maintenance is part of that at least keeping pace or upgrading that requirement, right? So do you have a maintenance schedule? Do you understand what needs to be done seasonally, quarterly, monthly, weekly? You know, are you following up that stuff? Do you really need to upgrade your HVAC system if you're properly maintaining? And I think we talked about this last time we were all together, but those types of things are as critical to maintain the smaller stuff, the short-term stuff, as a longer-term outlook and a longer-term investment in my mind. You know, do you get a pothole in your parking lot after the winter because of the heaving from the frost if you're up north in the snow, right? Can you go in and can you maintain that rather than having to wait 2 years and then you got to replace your whole driveway? Little things like that, I think don't necessarily add a whole lot of value, but in combination, they help keeping your facility in the right position where you want it.
It may not add immediate value, but it can keep you from losing value down the road.
Sure. That's right. Net neutral's okay. Yeah.
So you've mentioned maintenance. I mean, of course, there's the roof, the gutters. What are some of these other routine, you know, we'll call them upgrades or maintenance. What are these routine things that we should be doing probably more regularly than we are today?
Yeah. I think, you know, security is a big one, you know, maintaining fencing, perimeter fencing. If you've got, you know, a castle type facility, making sure that, you know, accessibility isn't readily available. You'd be shocked at how many places we go to and someone's leaned a pallet or a log or something up against the building, and you can clearly see they've been in and out of that facility. You know, the drive for safety and security is huge. So that sort of maintenance. Are your cameras working right? Are your logs working? Do you understand who's coming in and out of your building? Lots of instances where people have been found living in units, right? So are you actively, you know, checking over who's in and out of the facility and what does their log look like? Additional maintenance stuff is a bit like you would do in your home as well, right? You need to be regularly doing stuff. You need to be regularly changing filters. You need to be regularly making sure your lighting is working. If you got lighting is working, if you got motion switches, right? Are they working when you work through your facility? Are you keeping your property clean and free of trash and debris? And, you know, is your dumpster being emptied regularly, right? And I can tell you, a lot of times drive into a facility and it's a Monday or it's a Tuesday or a Wednesday and the dumpster's still stacked to the roof and the stuff lying all around it, right? What are you saying, right? Where do I care and how do I care about what's going on inside my business? So I, you know, just default to Melissa's point or Jane's point that, you know, you want it to look like you're always about to sell it, but pride of ownership as well, right? And I think that's regardless whether you have 200 facilities or this is your first facility, that pride of ownership is important. And the bigger guys actually have a really good program and having their field people take pride of ownership in their facilities. And they have a program clearly, right? Do A, B, C, D, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever that looks like. But the importance of that is perception. Perception is reality, and that's how people rent from you, is the reality that they see in front of them.
Okay, I love Lynn's comment. Thank you, Lynn, for saying this. Always have a CapEx list and a wish list. because it allows you to plan. Having a minimum of a 5-year plan for capital improvement is critical for planning.
Yes.
So you have an aging HVAC system. What's the plan to replace it? Are you just going to sit there and wait on it to break, or are you going to actually put a plan in place? We are successful asking owners to put money each month into a reserve fund so that they are prepared for capital spend, because things break all the time.
All the time.
It may not be the thing you're thinking about. It may be something
Yeah.
else that breaks, but at least you've got some money sitting there on the side to handle it. So very good point, Lynn.
Yeah, I think just like take, for example, doors, right? Your roll-up doors, like how many doors you have on your facility, odds are something's going to happen to one of those, right? Or maybe you have a batch where 10 of them happens, right? So, you know, you never know where it's coming from. But to Lynn's point, you should be prepared. You should have short-term capex put away. I like that a lot, and just be prepared. And you can limp something along that's relatively in the background. Can you limp your HVAC along? Yeah, of course.
Right.
You know, until you get in a position where you need to be replacing it. But you have to be aware and again take the pride in ownership. Yeah,
and I think that really goes to the management team. You do have to be aware. So every time you enter that property and you punch in your code for the gate, are you watching the gate to make sure it's working correctly? Is it snagging on something? Is it not rolling right? Is it chains dragging on the ground and you're just not even paying attention because it opened? Or are you actually looking for, oh, that's not working the way it's supposed to. Let me look into that and figure out what the problem is and get that fixed. Or, you're cleaning a unit and that door doesn't roll quite right, but it opened, so you just leave it. Being more aware of those little nuances is a great way to stay ahead of bigger problems.
I love that. I was chatting with a friend this morning who had a home inspection done, and the inspector tested the faucet to make sure it's working, right, which is fine. But what he failed to note in his inspection was the cold water turns on hot water, and the hot water spigot turns on the cold water. And it is sometimes like, does it work? Technically, yes. Water comes out. But does it function the way it's supposed to? And I think it's that layer of attention to detail. And you would think a professional inspector would do that or catch it. But I love that take, Melissa. Yeah. So Nigel. Good job, my guy. Nigel, I'm going to give you, we got, let me count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got 7 types of upgrades. And so I'm going to run through them, and I want you to give your hot take on what's the most important thing to look for as you're about to go do this upgrade. Is that okay?
Sure.
So welcome to the Thunderdome upgrade edition. So start with roof. What's the top advice you want to give people who are looking for a new roof?
Yeah, so if you're already in the roof replacement business, you need to make sure that you get a qualified contractor or manufacturer to supply you the roof, right? You want to look to see what warranty is. You want to see what material warranties you have. You certainly want to make sure that those guys are proficient in that type of roof that you're putting on, right? The roof is the single most overlooked item in any facility, in my mind, not outside of storage as well. It's the last thing that's thought about, but it's the first thing that creates a problem. So if you're putting a massive amount into a new roof, and it is a lot to put a new roof on a facility, you want to make sure that you have the right manufacturer, the right installer, and the right warranties in behind there to back it up.
Incredible. There you go. Yeah, if you're looking for a new roof, those are all great things to look at. Number 2, structural repair. So thinking like walls and banisters and all these other things about the building. Yeah, so primarily I think when you're talking structural repairs, you're talking about piers and headers and that sort of stuff that trailers back into and bend and ding. You would ideally want to go back to the original builder to make sure that you've got matching materials, matching gauges, and they have the correct subject matter experts in order to get that replaced for you. If you're talking, true structural, then that's clearly what's holding your building up. And there's a unique skill set that's needed in order to replace that type of material. If you've got, a tear in your partition panel,
or something like that that's non-structural, you can, relatively easily find that and replace it. But if it's a true structural issue, you should track down the original designer or engineer or builder of that facility to help you get through that. I would caution taking on structural repairs alone by yourself.
Smart. we all can change
need
light
to be left to
bulbs.
the professionals.
Yes. I know where the extent of my capabilities.
No, me too. Trust me. Yeah.
Yeah, if a light bulb's out, honey, I got that. I can change
Yeah.
light bulbs all day.
I haven't got it right now. I'll get to it, but I'll get it.
Yes. Number 3, fencing. You've already touched on fencing earlier, but if I'm about to upgrade my fence, what are the main things I should be looking out for?
Yeah, no, again, I think you've got to be compliant, like with local codes. So that's important. So there's always height restrictions, right? There's sometimes this type of fence restrictions depending on your location. So whether you can use wrought iron or chain link or whatever the case may be. So you need to be aware of that. To me, there's not really a shortcut in fencing. To me, it's the most critical sign of safety and security outside of the gate in storage. It's what portrays how your facility communicates itself to the outside world. Storage has evolved now, especially in the last 20 years, from going what single story, one level facilities used to be to what they are now. And the main focus is around the security, lighting, and the safety of the facility. I've said it ad nauseum, but guys like myself don't go to storage facilities very often. My wife goes to pick up the Christmas stuff, right? The storage facility isn't built for me. The storage facility is built for your customer, and typically the customer is someone's wife, girlfriend, kid who's gone over there to grab something out of the unit. And so the fencing is the first line of defense to be able to bring safety and security into the facility.
Interesting. Well, to that point, the next 2 are related, so I'll combine them. And in fact, Lillian actually had a great question related. So Lillian said, hey, we're needing a new gate and starting to get quotes. Basically, the question is, what do we have to look out for to make sure that we are purchasing something that will fit our needs? So the next 2 items, number 4, number 5, are gate and access control systems.
For the gate, you want to get a storage centric provider to give you a gate. You have a lot of options. You probably already have an existing one. Maybe it's a roller that goes out to your property line or beyond your property line, and maybe you can bring in a gate that's actually moves vertically, so you're not using up all that space. So it's an up and down gate. Again, you want someone who's got a track record in the industry, someone who can sell you or show you that they've got a gate with 40,000 repetitions on that system, right? Because that gate gets used a lot, or at least maybe you do, maybe you don't want it to be used a lot, but it gets used a lot, right? My biggest fear in going to a storage is actually not getting into a storage, is actually getting out. So, you want something that's functional. You want to use someone who has a storage background, who understands the nuances, has the control panel that can integrate with your existing system if that's required as well, especially into your security. Melissa, you probably know a bit more about this, but those types of things is what I would be looking for.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think Jennifer made a great point too. Make sure that there's a local technician that can come out and make those adjustments, especially in that first year, because things do need to be adjusted, as weather changes and that sort of thing. I think that's a great point. And you also want there to be a local person for that emergency situation where, some crazy person ran through the gate with the U-Haul truck and now it's broken and I need it fixed. And you don't want it to be, 4 weeks later before that gate's repaired. You need a local tech guy that's able to come out and address that. So
Mr. Chuggles in the audience knows about customers and U-Haul trucks. No, I mean, I talk to clients all the time whose gate is just permanently up for the day
Yeah.
or the week because the technician can't get there for an extended period of time.
Right.
And
So
that
yes.
applies not only to the actual gate operator, the mechanics of it, but also to the keypad system if it goes down, or so it can be on the tech side or it can be on the operational side that you could be out some serious time if you don't have local people that can help you.
Yeah. So Jennifer,
and
great added.
I think on the gate, especially, people are forgiving if they roll in and it's up, right? It's broken. If they come back the following Saturday and it's still up and it's still broken,
Yeah.
perception's reality, right? You
Yep.
know, I've just got one roll up door between my stuff and the outside world.
Yeah.
So it's really good. And the point about having someone local to be able to make adjustments, do the emergency calls is critical.
Yeah, great advice, y'all. So Lillian, hope you wrote all those things down. And if you didn't, that's okay. You can watch the replay later on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. 2 more items, Nigel. Number 6, climate control. So your HVAC, all the things that make climate control. What am I going to look out for if I'm upgrading those systems?
Yeah, so if you're upgrading into a climate control from non-climate, it's a pretty big lift, right? There's insulation requirements, there's energy efficiency, all that sort of stuff. If you have an existing climate control building and you're looking for an upgrade in the HVAC, there's a lot more options on the market than there used to be. It used to be condenser, run the cold lines to an exchanger, then run ducting all over the building. Those days are passing us by, and now going to split systems, which are much smaller units. Climate control has become more about humidity control than actual temperature control. So now you got people designing systems where they're pulling air in, they're moving the air through the system, they're drying it, for lack of a better term, and then they're pushing it into the units. Wow. So you get a lot more efficiency. You're not actually trying to keep a 100,000 square foot facility at 80 degrees. You're actually just moving the air, and you're using the air movement to cool it. So the humidity control was becoming more and more important. So if you're thinking about, if your HVAC's on its last legs and you're thinking about what do I do next, you need to ask your AC professional about other options beyond existing exchanges and units on the outside of the building or on the roof, which isn't great either if you've got a standing seam roof. So yeah, there's a lot more options now in the environmental control, I would say, inside the building. Climate or temperature control was kind of out, and now it's more about maintenance, airflow, humidity control, that sort of thing.
Great advice. And so last one, number 7, as far as upgrades go, you touched on it moments ago, but landscaping, talk to us through that. What are the things that I got to look out for? What's your best advice on if I need to update my landscaping?
Yeah, I think we had it before. Someone made a comment, they just put in a bunch of time and stuff like that. So you're looking at a low maintenance stereoscape type facility, right? You want something that's obviously appealing and attractive, but low maintenance is the key, right? And you don't need big trees and bushes blocking your facility off either, right? You need to be able to see the sign that Melissa just had cleaned, right? So you know where the facility is. You got to promote your facility, but you can't hide your facility. It needs to be easy to be found. But I think it's a bit like when you drive past a house that has beautiful landscaping. There's a perception behind that says, well, this is a really nice place, and it might be an old house, but it's got pretty landscaping.
They take care
or
of
you drive past a new house that's got really bad landscaping, you're like, doesn't look that good. The curb appeal we all probably know who have bought and sold houses before, the curb appeal is the hook, right? That's what starts it off. So if you take Tommy's world out of it with online reviews and marketing and all that sort of stuff, when people pull up, they're also going to make a decision in that moment as well.
Yeah, even if they liked what they saw online, if they got to the property and it's crap,
Yeah.
and it doesn't match
Yeah.
the pictures, and the
Yeah.
pretty landscaping that they put in for the pictures that go on the website has not been
Yeah.
maintained in 12
No.
months, and everything's dead or overgrown with weeds. That tells me they just stopped caring.
Yes. Especially in busy markets where like I can just keep driving 20 seconds and there's another facility.
Yeah.
Or in the
Yeah.
worst case, there's one literally across the street, right? I mean, you're talking about you're hanging out with reliable storage. You can see the competitor when I roll up into your driveway.
Yeah.
That's where curb appeal really makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think decisions are made in those moments. I certainly don't doubt that. You've made a conscious decision to go get a unit. You found your facility. You're still making that decision before you sign the paperwork, right? So decisions are made in those moments when you pull up to a facility, for sure.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Trojan storage. Appearance definitely makes or breaks a business a lot of the time. You're totally
Yeah,
right.
totally agree.
Yeah.
Really good.
So yeah, thanks for chatting with us about upgrades. So Melissa, let's ask all these expansions questions. So now these are the folks in the audience who hopefully have room to expand because they're going to get all the advice to do so.
Yeah. Okay. So I love this first question. I hear this a lot too. What are the signs that you should consider expanding versus building new or acquiring? If you've got extra demand, shouldn't you just increase the rents instead?
Well, I mean, I think there's a ceiling on the rent,
Mm,
right? There's not a ceiling. If you have the ability to add square foot, you can add square footage plus the ceiling on the rent, and then you got more income. Yeah, you're right. Can you keep increasing rents? Of course you could, but at some point there's going to be a point where people won't pay the rent, and then are you willing to risk those people moving out to go down the street, or can you find the sweet spot with your rental rate that meets your requirements, your financial requirements, and then put some money into capex for an expansion? I think there's that balance between maintaining occupancy, rental rates, and then adding more square footage. And square footage now doesn't have to be an actual building either, right? If you have more land and you can develop some of that into parking or boat and RV parking, that sort of stuff, it's a quick turnaround, relatively low capex, and it's a decent generator for some income as well. So when you talk expansion, yeah, it doesn't have to be 4 walls and a roof. It can be something beyond that as well. And we're starting to see a lot of mixed use going into new facilities and storage where people are combining different uses and then just putting storage on top as well.
Awesome. So before someone like sets forth and goes and expands everything, right? What are the major pitfalls? What are the construction things? What are the gotchas that if someone's never done this before, what should they prepare to to absorb or take in or be prepared for?
Yeah. The first thing you need to do is visit your local municipality. You probably have zoning already for a storage facility. Will they allow you to do an expansion? And what are the rules look like around that expansion? That to me is your go, no go right there. So if you've made the determination, your traffic tells you, or you did another feasibility study that says you should move into expansion, first thing, even before you even hire a design professional, is to go and say to your municipality, hey, if I do this, will this be allowed? And then you get your no-go from there. So once you get the go-ahead, obviously, depending on what the expansion looks like, it could be one building, it could be your boat and RV outdoor parking, it might be enclosed, it could be we're putting multi-stories on facilities that were traditionally single stories before, So then you want to hire your design professional. And you want a storage-centric architect to help you start navigating what it needs to look like. If you've got a feasibility study, you know how many square feet you want, what does your unit mix look like, how many net rentable can you get out of the footprint that you have, do you put the building in the right place for an easement, right? How close to the property line can you get traffic flow, right? So got a couple of acres, I'm going to put boat and RV parking out there, covered parking, and then all of a sudden you can't get a bus in there to park, So you've lost the opportunity, right? So driveway wasn't wide enough. I didn't think about turning around that 40-foot bus.
Yep.
There's a lot of those things that go into consideration. And so at that time is the best time to engage the major stakeholders. So design professional, metal building professional. Most metal building companies, us included, will be the engineer of record to help do the design work for you, procure, and then install the facility. But first and foremost, if you have an existing facility and we're talking an expansion, you should go ask if they're going to let you do that. Now, if they say no, it doesn't mean that you can't go lobby it and you can't go back in and you can't present your case, but you'll want to have some more horsepower behind you with your design professional there. But you should go into the local jurisdiction and just ask them what are their thoughts on me doing this.
Mm-hmm. So what do you need to include when you're estimating the expansion cost? Because I'm sure just like with a new build, there's those things that pop up that, oh, I didn't bank on that. And
Sure.
so expansion, I'm sure is no different. So what are some of those things we need to think about?
Yeah, well, the greatest word in construction is contingency. So that's your last bucket going in. But you have to think all the way through the process, and having a design professional and a metal building guy in early helps you with that. So you've got to think about expansion of utilities. If you're going into, if you're putting in a climate control that needs fire suppression, right? Where is that line right now? Is it going to tear up my driveway? How many units can't be serviceable because I've had to tear up the drive aisle to run more utilities into the new building? There's a cost implication there. There's a customer implication where now where are you going to put them, and where are you going to put their stuff? You just told me you raised rents as high as you could, right? You've got no more room now. Where are you going to put your existing customers if you put them out for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks so they can't access the units?
Oh, wow.
So utilities alone, right? Just underground work that needs to be done. You've got construction traffic that's fixing to come on site, concrete trucks, subcontractor vehicles, construction vehicles, big heavy equipment. How's all that going to get in and out? Is that going to tear up your driveway aisle again? Is that going to go? Is one of those guys going to run into your gate and bend it, and now you can't get in and out of your facility securely? Your gate doesn't work. So just without even getting the building in motion, there's a lot of that type of construction thing to think about. I was talking yesterday with someone, and we're talking about the amount of work that goes in behind building a building and all the people that are involved and all the considerations that need to be made. So, it takes a lot of planning. I've said before, Melissa, I think you've heard this, like, this is not your bathroom renovation, right? You can't get your cousin Joe to come down and build you a building. It just doesn't work that way, right? He may have done a good job in your bathroom, but he's not going to do a good job with your facility and your facility expansion. And it's a lot of money. I mean, it's expensive, right? Concrete's not cheap. Steel's not cheap. Doors, hallway systems, electricity, your HVAC, your fire suppression. Does your city now require you to put fire suppression in because you went over 5,000 square feet, right? Every jurisdiction has a different demarcation line for fire suppression. If you don't want to do sprinklers, now do you have to do firewalls, CMU walls, and split your building up? If you split your building up, how do you make the traffic flow through the building?
Wow.
So again, I urge people, if they're moving that direction, get a subject matter expert who's in storage, get a design professional who's done storage before, who understands the nuances of what needs to be done. And then further in the chain, you can make a decision if you want to do a general contractor, if you want to try and do it yourself. That's all perfectly okay. But in the planning stages and the design build stage of the project, the more input you can get from technical sellers, from subject matter experts, the more pitfalls they're going to avoid. But there is a lot of things to consider when working into an expansion, especially.
I'm glad you mentioned the customer side because
Yes.
I think it's really easy to get focused on how much is this build going to cost me without thinking about how much is it actually costing the customers who are already paying to use my facility. And like you said, I'm already charging them top dollar. I'm already doing all these things, and that's why I'm building more units. How am I going to make sure that their service is not interrupted and they end up leaving just because there was just too much hassle? And
Right.
I think a lot of that goes back to communication. I think we're hesitant for some reason to talk to our tenants. And if you're starting a project, let them know. Let them know in advance. Hey guys, this next 6 weeks gonna be kind of crazy. But
Right.
when we're done, this is what's going to be the result. And set up a line of communication where if you've ever got any questions, this is how you can find out. Maybe it's your Facebook page. Maybe it's, I'm going to send out a weekly email to you to let you know this is what's been done. This is what you can expect next week. Here's the delay. Let them know, because that lets them know that they're still valuable to you and that you're not just focused on getting this new building at all costs,
Mhm.
Right.
So communication.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, any interference, even when we're doing, door replacements, with our Century door line now,
Mhm.
the notification of the customer, hey, 6 weeks from this date, we plan on being here. Here's who's
Right.
going to be here. Here's how we're maintaining it. Here's how we're managing the
Yep.
interior of your units. Well, it's the same conversation as you move through in construction as well. If you think you've got, just say you've got concrete being poured for your foundation at 5 o'clock in the morning, you've got 8 concrete trucks and a pump truck there and 40 people. Well, the guy who's got a business renting out of your unit, who's coming to pick up his lawnmower, for example, how's he going to go to work that day? But he can't get in there because you've got the whole thing blocked up till noon, right?
Yeah.
So the being considerate, I love the communication thing, advance warning. Here's what we're thinking about. Here's how I think this will affect you. It may or may not. If it's going to, then we'll talk that through with you as we move forward. But the impact, from the customer side is real when it comes to that sort of stuff.
I love that. So more on the side of estimating. So what is the dollar per square? And I know this is going to depend vastly, Nigel.
We want a quote,
But
Nigel.
I want a
Yeah.
quote right now. I've got 4 acres.
Yeah.
I'm ready to
Yeah.
expand. But no, really, like, just, give us a range, or maybe not even a range if there's not one, but give us the methodology for what is the going rate in 2025 dollar per square foot for an expansion.
Yeah. So you can stop recording now, so I don't get fired after this. So this never happened.
Nigel did not say this.
Nigel is not. I'm going to change your name.
Yeah, look, there is some wide variances. Like, to be honest, all joking aside, it really is. It does become municipalities specific, right? So different requirements based on different locations in the country. So we talk Pacific Northwest, super focused in on energy efficiency. West Coast, super focused on seismic. Southeast, super focused on hurricanes, right? Northeast, snow loads, the expansion contraction. The reality is now, for a single story building, climate control, interior hallway, exterior doors, somewhere in there, the swing really is all in without the dirt. Is somewhere between $70 to $85 a square foot. For a multi-story building, the swing is somewhere between 90 to 115, 120, somewhere in there per square foot. So it's broad. Your finishes have a lot to do with it, right? If you're on a single-story building, your exterior metal cladding type, ranges from, $5 a square foot to $25, right? So it depends what you're trying to do, right? So your design professional, this is why I keep harping back to the design professional. They will help you, guide you through that budgetary wise. They will get you through the city, right? And they will meet their requirements as well. and then you start working it back and forth, budgeting from there. The variation just in concrete costs alone, or do you need another transformer? Things like that. There's so many variables. Again, get yourself storage specific contractors that know the business, that are working in the business constantly. What that does is it allows you to get real market pricing as you're going through the process. A general contractor will typically have 2 or 3 electricians that he's constantly working with on various projects, and he'll know what things invariably cost in a budget range. So that's a good way to get it dialed in, and you should engage those people early, even as you would start to do your pro forma, as you're starting to think about budgeting. If you're starting to think about putting your business plan together to go to the bank, you want good, helpful contractors and design professionals to get you in the range to make sure the project succeeds. Ultimately, for us, we want to be engaged because we want you to do the project because we want to build it for you. So it's a long-term build relationship for us. We want to offer everything that we know to help you get through that. And you might have an idea to do it one way. We've seen it done 1,500 times a different way. Maybe you should consider that. Maybe that's more budget friendly.
Yep. Early in the process.
Early.
If you not do that too early.
Yeah. I can't tell you enough. Like our business in general has moved dramatically towards a design build model where stakeholders are engaged early. There's loads of input. There's loads of conversations around costs. And when you get to construction, that's really the easiest part, and you have a predictable outcome, right? Yeah. You as the customer who's buying the project now has a relatively predictable outcome. Now, we always put contingency in because it's construction. Stuff goes horribly wrong all the time. No,
it rained every day.
Yeah. You get rain
in May,
so I can't do much about that. But when you're dealing with people who do it all the time, they understand the cost implications to something like that as well. And something you didn't thought about till you see the rain, but weather impacts on a project are real, right? Did you start too late? Does it rain all the time? Are you in the rainy season? How does that affect your customers? Now you've got people there for 6 weeks longer than you had expected through no fault of theirs, but just the climate that you were dealing in that moment, Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing real numbers, not Nigel. Kreft.
We appreciate that.
There was a knock on my door. I think it was Richard.
I love it. Melissa, where do we go from here? We got a couple questions left.
Yeah, let's see. I feel like we had a question about how do you decide on your mix type for your units. Nigel, you already talked about the feasibility study. Even on an expansion, I think it's very helpful to, get the feasibility study. They're going to dig into your competition and your market and see there may be someone right down the street who's also planning to do an expansion that you haven't realized yet, but a good feasibility study will likely uncover some of that. So make sure that you don't get so just focused on your facility that you don't think about what's going on around you. And what, you need to kind of future plan for that too. So,
I think that's so critical. I talk about that a lot as well. Normally from the new build side, right? Before you start making the decision, I said before, go to your municipality, see if they'll do it. But the cost of a feasibility study versus the cost of making a mistake, it's teeny tiny. And then if it doesn't work, maybe you really can find out what the ceiling is as far as rental rates go for your area before someone else comes in, or it doesn't even work, right?
Yeah. Especially if this is your first property. If you've got several locations and you've done several expansions, it's likely that kind of what you're looking for. Sure. But if it's your first one, take some extra care. And it's like buying a house and having the inspection done. The inspection costs this much. and
Yeah,
it
yeah.
keeps you from making a purchase that is just a money pit of problems. So make sure that you actually get the professionals in there to look at it and give their input. It's
I
very
love
helpful.
that. Yeah, because when you're talking, oh, go ahead.
Super inexpensive insurance right there in a feasibility study.
Yeah.
When we're talking a multi-million-dollar project, what's $1,500?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I talk to operators all the time and they're like, "Hell, I've got this building full of 5x10s and it's just not renting. What do I do?" Like, you shouldn't have built a building full of 5x10s.
Right.
Like, you just don't, you built wrong. And no amount of marketing is going to rent this because you built based on the price per square foot that you could get. You're thinking, oh, I'm going to get top dollar when I rent these, not thinking about the demand for that type of unit. And you have to think past your own little pad of paper where you're crunching your numbers on to see what works and see what's actually in your market and what's actually going to be sustainable.
Yeah, and one caveat, obviously our alpha framing system, but when you design a building, you're pretty locked in with the unit mix, right? And it's very difficult to make those adjustments because the building has been designed to that mix. And you may be able to get a little bit of square footage, squeezing one way or the other to try and make it more appealing to your renters. But yeah, it's very difficult to overcome that mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. So you've been mentioning not to hire cousin Joe.
Well, you can. It's your choice.
It's your choice. Yeah.
I think we're recording.
Don't call Nigel later when it's a mess. Don't.
Yes. Yeah. Or maybe do call Nigel, but but in that regard, talk to us about red flags, right? What are signs that things are maybe not going the way it should be, or what are these red flags that as an operator or an investor or a developer that I need to immediately raise my hand and talk to my contractor or the person who's in charge? What are some of these red flags?
Yeah. So first and foremost, you should have an established schedule, construction schedule. And you can write that construction schedule into the contract, and you should write that into the construction contract. You should agree with your general contractor the duration of the project. Now, you'll have a caveat in there for weather. You'll have a caveat in there maybe for availability of some supplies. Obviously, during the COVID years, it was difficult to get some items, so there were some delays. So there's some force majeure stuff in there, but you should have an agreed upon schedule, and you should be talking to your contractor weekly and having a weekly meeting with your contractors to see how progress is going. You are hiring them as the management team and the controller of the schedule to get to a predictable outcome. And you have the right to ask, hey, how are things going? Right? You don't need to know about construction. You just need to know, are we on time or are we not on time? So the best backstop is a schedule. When you're starting to get schedule slip, you should ask, what are we doing to mitigate the schedule slip? And then what are we doing to make that time back so we still get to our predictable outcome? Now, if it's rained for 6 weeks and you're in Seattle, it's going to be a little tougher to scrape that back on a 15-week schedule, right? There's a scale of severability and management inside that. But for someone who's expanding their facility, who's not a big operator, who's doing this for the first time or the second time, or has 2 facilities and has bought them and hasn't built before, the schedule is your driver. The schedule is your key. You're contractually obligated to the schedule, and you need to maintain the schedule. And you can ask your contractor what's going on when a draw is due, right? If you've got to go to the bank and the bank approves a draw and they've just stroked a check for $1 million, you have the right to say, that doesn't look like $1 million. How do we get to this part, right?
You better have the right.
Yeah, right. So lien waivers and those sorts of things, right? Yeah. So there's mechanisms in place through your lender to help manage that. But if you're self-funding this, lien releases for materials and labor from subcontractors that you've paid that say, hey, we've paid our bills. We're not going to lien the property. We know we've been paid, and you get a release of lien so that you have protection. But the schedule isn't. It's all about the schedule. You want to be able to move fast, execute fast, and hold those people accountable that are responsible for that to, in fact, do that for you. In our business, we're schedule driven, and it's all about getting those doors rolling, right? The sooner we get those doors rolling for you, the sooner you're renting, the sooner you're putting more money in the bank, the sooner you're looking for the next opportunity, and we want to be there to help you with that opportunity.
Right.
Love that. Those are great. That's great advice, man. Yeah, having that construction schedule, that's
it's all that matters.
Stick to it, baby. So Nigel, you're incredible. Question of the week. And during lobby talk, we had some great answers from the audience, but I want to hear from you. What are the 3 most important upgrades that are worth the investment every time? 3. You have to limit yourself to 3.
The 3 best, again, I'll go to security, safety and security. Right, so that includes lighting, gates, fences, accessibility, right, all that sort of stuff. That is perception is reality. I'll go back to that statement again because it's true. The next best upgrade in my mind is functional doors.
Ooh.
So
it should be a given.
It should be a given, but it is not, right? The door is the access to that person's world. And so ease of use, ease of operation it is critical. And then I think the next one I think that is worth the investment. I'll go with if a new roof, if a you're roofing on your facility, whether it be a metal roof, a flat roof, TPO roof. If you start getting water intrusion into your building, you're opening yourself up to all sorts of chaos. Insurance, lawsuits, mold. I can't tell you, back in the old days when we used to do roof replacements, we actually used to take the whole roof off. And every now and then you get caught in a rainstorm, thunderstorm in Texas, inevitably, right? And what would happen, as sure as, was someone's great-great-grandfather's rocking chair from the Mayflower was in that unit. Irreplaceable, antique.
Yeah, it's always irreplaceable.
Always irreplaceable, guaranteed. Do not let water get into your building. It just opens up a can of worms that you can get the lid back on, but it's super expensive, and you have a lot of unhappy people.
Love that. So security enhancements, functional doors, roof.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Nigel,
Nigel, you the bomb. You are the man.
Thanks, mate.
The audience, for those in the audience who want to get in touch with you, honestly, I didn't even ask you at the beginning. Give us the pitch. Who elevates structures, and how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so we're all storage shop. We provide design, engineering, procurement, installation for all storage types. We have a proprietary patented system for multi-stories called Alpha Framing System, which has overtaken the market. It's cleaner, faster, stronger than traditional framing, and it's a really unique product. But what makes us at Elevate unique is a couple of things. First of all, we're 100% employee owned, so everyone has a driver. Everyone has an outcome and to your benefit as the customer. We want success. Number 2, we're part of an organization called Central States, and we have 13, soon to be 14 manufacturing facilities. We control the supply chain from the mill through manufacturing, procurement, trucking. We have 150 employee owners who wheel them big rigs down the road for us to make sure the steel gets there on time. and we're really unique, and we have a really unique position in the market for that. So we've been in business since 2007. We've built 1,600 facilities in total, 500 of them being alpha. So it's a really unique position. My sales team, the guys that I support, the team I support, are the best technical sellers in the business. They're trusted advisors. They have your best interests at heart when you visit with them, and they want to find economies and they want to find success. So we build nationwide, 200 or 300 buildings a year. The count is hard to keep up. We've had incredible success. We're blessed, but we're only blessed by the customer. And so that is our driver. That's our number one focus.
You guys do a great job.
Y'all do an incredible job.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate you not pitching Elevate throughout this entire session.
I
Which sometimes it's difficult to, right? When you're the expert and you know that you know this better than anyone else. And I just love your integrity.
I did forget we manufacture our own door and hallway systems now as well. So I better get that in, otherwise marketing will be knocking on my door next.
There you go. Well, y'all, Nigel's awesome. I included a link to their website. I also included a link to his LinkedIn if you want to chat about expansions, upgrades, or just want to talk to a guy who's got a really fun voice.
Well, and Sue asked the question earlier. I'm not from the UK or from New Zealand. You have to have a Kiwi on your storage team to be legitimate. It's just the way that it is. But Sue, my wife is from Wales. So if you know the UK, you know where Wales is. So.
Oh, wow.
There you go. Yeah, you didn't get your accent from Villarica, Georgia.
No. You probably hear my Texas accent more so than my Georgia one, I'm sure.
Well, Nigel, thanks for coming out and hanging with us. Our next episode. Okay, Sue says I'm from Wales. There you go, Sue. Our next episode is all about disaster prep and recovery. We've had a couple pretty big national and regional disasters, from flooding to fires to storms. And so we've got a couple really strong experts to come chat with us next month in August. So if you're in regions that are prone to flooding or fires or lightning and those kinds of things, this will be a fantastic episode. We're going to talk about, what do you do from a facility point of view, but also we're going to dive into what are you going to do with the customer point of view, and ultimately how you're going to take care of the folks who entrusted their belongings at your facility. So if you don't know already, this episode's recorded and it'll be available on YouTube. I put the link earlier. Josh is going to get it posted. Garrett's going to get that on YouTube, and Josh is going to get it posted on wherever you get your podcasts. He's going to get that on the official Gabfocus Self Storage podcast. And I'll get a plug for the podcast. In addition to the episodes being replayed, Melissa and Josh do a fantastic job of putting pop-up episodes. Sometimes it's just them. Sometimes they bring on an awesome guest. Which episode number is the podcast on, Melissa? Do you know?
Oh gosh, what are
we have 148, I think, is next week.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So Josh said, because we're not at home right now, obviously, today's episode will actually drop next week, just because our internet is not super fast.
You don't have that gigabit.
But we will be recording. Yeah, we'll still have one drop, but it'll be one that we record here.
We'll drop tomorrow.
Yeah, but the rebroadcast will be next week.
Well, there you go. So but you can catch it on YouTube, where we've moved all of our recordings to. So y'all, thank you for having a good time with us. Nigel, thank you.
Guys, thank you.
Thanks for coming out. Thanks, y'all. Have fun in Washington, Melissa.
I will.
See you guys. Thank you so much.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.